Pirates, X-People, James Gunn debunks Grace Randolph again, and DC's downfall. All this on today's episode of Bridging the Geekdoms. What's going on, everybody? How's it shaking? It's been a bit. A week. How's it going? Welcome to Bridging Geekdoms. I am your host, Robert Slavinsky. And boy, we have a controversial show for you today. I hope you like controversial topics because that's what I wanted to cover today. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to cover just a bunch of controversial topics because what the hell, why not? But of course, before we get into all of that, let me explain to you how this show works. If you're new here, just stopping by, the first 20-25 minutes usually is dedicated to a few hot topics. It could be news, rumors, reviews of the past week. Anything that's popped up in the pop culture world, essentially. After that, though, we then focus on a main topic. And this week, our main topic is going to be dedicated to who is to blame for the fall of DC films. So sit back, relax, hit that like button, hit subscribe, share this with all your friends because what the hell, why not? Bridging Geekdoms is pretty cool. We should all be talking about it. It should be something that gets talked about all the time. I'm in the stratosphere of the internet because I'm Robert, I'm cool, Bridging Geekdoms is cool, you're cool, and that's the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so. Something like that. I don't know. I really don't know what I'm talking about right now. But the first thing I actually want to talk about is The Mandalorian, Chapter 21. I gotta say, this chapter was pretty damn good, and I'm honestly shocked and I am surprised at how many people have enjoyed this episode, especially coming off of the past few episodes where people just complained nonstop about what they did, because everything they complained about prior to this episode is exactly what this episode was. And I will say, while I enjoyed this episode, I was a little disappointed in some aspects of it. You see, this pirate king or pirates, whatever his name is, this whole angle with the pirates was set up in episode 1, and it really felt, episode 1 of season 3, that is, it really felt like this was going to be like a B side or a B story arc. Nothing like, not the main story for this season, but it would be one that could carry on from episode to episode or pop up a couple times throughout this season. And the fact that it's all but cleared up right now, it's really bizarre to me. This whole season was predicated on these stories and expecting these stories to just go on for an entire season or more. And take the Mandalorian, Din Djarin redeeming himself in the waters of Mandalore. That happened within 2 episodes. This was another 2-episode arc that went very quickly. So I was a little surprised at how quickly that got all wrapped up. But I gotta say, it is awesome to see my man Greef Karga back again. Greef Karga, his character arc has been so interesting. From being just a what do you call it? A bounty hunter. No, he wasn't a bounty hunter, but he sold bounties to bounty hunters. And the fact that his story has changed to becoming a leader of an entire planet, essentially. That's so cool. That's an interesting arc that I didn't expect to see from Greef Karga in season 1 at all. And I am going to say, while there's been some really cool things like with Greef Karga and even the pirates, despite it being so short-lived, they're really cool. But there's some also other cool things, because we got Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan showing up in live action last season. I don't think any of us really knew what to expect from her coming into season 3. I don't think anybody really knew what the plan was with her in season 3. But I think this episode absolutely shows the shift that this season took with who the main character is. It's not Din Djarin, it's not Grogu, it's not Greef Karga, it's Bo-Katan. This is her season. Really, this should be called Mandalorian Season 3 Bo-Katan, because it's her story. It's about her finding redemption and becoming the leader, once again, the rightful leader of Mandalore and the Mandalorian people. And that, to me, that is such a great story, interesting story. And I give credit to Favreau and Filoni for going this route, because it would have been so easy for them to just stick to the father-son story that they had been utilizing and doing with Din and Grogu for 2 seasons. It would have been so easy to do that. But they shifted the narrative. They shifted a little bit and went another direction. And it is phenomenal what they're doing with this. I can't say enough or give them enough props or enough credit for making this shift, because she is an amazing character. She's been phenomenal thus far. And let me tell you, we get to see in this episode the Mandalorians doing what they do best. Seeing them gearing up and going to battle side by side against these pirates. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I think a lot of other people did. I think this is a big reason why people like this episode so much, because of what they did with the Mandalorians and how they pushed them and made them finally be the Mandalorians we saw in season 1 and that we've seen in the Clone Wars, and just the amazingness of, and the coolness and the greatness that they can be when they work together and they showcase their warrior side. And I think it was great that they did that. And not only that, but we get to see X-Wing pilot Captain Teva, show up again. And he's a great character. I was talking to some people on social media the past couple of days, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of people who are like, this feels like they probably took the Rangers of the Republic, or of the New Republic show that they were going to do, and kind of intertwined it with this season of The Mandalorian. I think they have. I think we're seeing some of that with this, because at the end of this episode, we see that they go and they find a ship. As a rebel pilot, he finds a ship just floating through space that was ransacked, the one that Moff Gideon was on, and he's no longer there, showcasing that he escaped, which I think is a great story arc, and I think that's going to lead more to season 4 of The Mandalorian for sure. But how about that cameo? When this popped up, my eyes just got so, I was like, Zeb! Holy look at it, Zeb! They brought Zeb into live action, and I think they did it specifically in a short scene here on The Mandalorian to see if they could get it right. Because this isn't an easy character to get right on screen. Animation, that's fine, that's great. But when you try to put it to screen and live action and CGI, it could come out pretty poorly. And I think he's going to play a bigger role in Ahsoka. Because when you have Sabine, when you have Hera, you're going to have Chopper, you're going to have all the crew from the Rebels popping up, you have to have Zeb as well. And I think this was just the test to see if they can make his character work in CG. And it was great to see him, though. It was absolutely great to see him. And again, we have the pirates that were there, and this one here, I don't remember his name, but the one that was kind of like after Din Djarin in the sky battle, the dog fighting that was going on, and then he leaves the pirate leader and says, see you later. I'm not going to stick around for this. I think he'll pop up again. I think he has this vendetta against Din Djarin. I think he's going to try to exploit, or not exploit, but try to take advantage of, or get his revenge, I should say, on. Yeah, I mean, this was a great, great, great episode, all the way down to them talking to Bo-Katan, and that's the thing. This episode was essentially filler. It had 2, maybe 3 moments that connect to the larger overall story. So, like I said, it's surprising to me that so many people who sit there and say how much they don't like filler love this episode, because this pretty much was a fully filler episode. The last 3 to 4 minutes was the bulk of the overall story, and Bo-Katan being told that she is going to be the one to unite the Mandalorian people, those who follow the way and those who don't. And that's kind of the story that we're heading in. The rest of it was all filler. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts below, because this episode was great. I want to hear what you think is going to happen over the next few episodes. We only got, 3, 4 left. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Where you think this season's going? What do you think is going to happen with Mandalore? Where's Moff Gideon? Is he going to pop up this season, or do you think it's going to be next season that he pops up? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah. I tell you what, I love that Mandalorian show. There isn't a show, a Star Wars show, that has ever made me grin ear to ear as much as this show does. It's just that simple. There's nothing at all. All right, so we got some other stuff popping up today. Well, not today. This past. So we all know about Victoria Alonso getting canned last week by Marvel. Well, this also came up because of that. So back in 2019, Victoria Alonso was actually talking about X-Men with a publication, I don't know if it was a website or what have you, but she was talking about X-Men and where they were. And her comments from that day have popped back up due to everything's going on right now. So people obviously are going to bring up past things like, oh, this is why she was fired. This is why she was fired. But the problem is, because of the state of the country and the world right now, with all the asinine we, they, them refrigerators and Kims and Cams and Chems and whatever the hell that people call themselves nowadays. I don't even know. These pronouns, the asinine pronoun crap that's going on right now. Because of that, and because of the stuff that was going on with Victoria Alonso, this popped up, her comments popped up again. And it says, this is back when they were talking about X-Men. I don't know where the future is going, speaking on where the MCU is going in regards to X-Men. It's funny that people call it the X-Men. There's a lot of female superheroes in that X-Men group. So I think it's outdated. So this popped up, and now people obviously are out there talking about it, not complaining, but saying, yeah, supporting this. You got these leftists out there, these liberals out there who are sitting there supporting this comment made 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and saying, yeah, they're right. And then they're even going back and talking about how Kevin Feige has never said X-Men. All he says is mutants, because he's fallen into that trap where, oh, you can't say X-Men. It is absolutely asinine. There's no reason to change it to X people or X theys or X thems. It's just absolutely fucking stupid. And to think that they should. We know when you go woke, you go broke. And I tell you right now, if they refuse in the MCU, if Kevin Feige refuses to utilize X-Men in any of his films because of, oh, we need to make sure we don't, hurt anybody's feelings who looks at themselves as a she or looks at themselves as a cat or a refrigerator. That is going to be one of the final nails on the coffin for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's already struggling right now, and that's gonna really push it towards the end. It's stupid. People just don't understand this whole pronoun thing right now is only about. It's simply about encouraging those who are mentally unstable. It's encouraging them. It's not helping them. It's encouraging them to continue being ridiculous. And it's maddening to me. It's absolutely mad. There's men and there's women. Now, if you want to get into the discussion of women versus men in the X-Men, yes, you're absolutely right. There are women in the X-Men. There are absolutely women in the X-Men. But here's the thing. Nobody ever cared. The X-Men have been around for what, 70 years, 60 years, 40 years? I don't know what it is anymore. It's been around for multiple decades. And to sit there and act like in 2023 that this is an actual problem, you're the problem. If you think there's an issue with it, you're the issue. You're the problem. We don't need to adjust everything to appease everybody. Not every single person will ever be happy in this world. And it's not my job. It's not Marvel's job. It's not your job to change things to appease those who are scared or frightened or unhappy with how something is. Not to mention, like, the most powerful mutant was part of the X-Men, and it was a woman. Oh man, crazy, absolutely crazy. And that's the thing. You start to think about it. You want to sit there and act like, oh, there's no equality in superheroes genre. Bullshit. The most powerful heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Scarlet Witch and Captain Marvel. And then you take a look at the X-Men, and you got Jean Grey. Like, I don't care if it's called X-Men. You shouldn't care if it's called X-Men. Just make a good damn movie. But don't bow down to the ridiculous requests and beliefs that there's more than men and women, more genders than men and women. That's just dumb. It's idiotic. And like I said, it would be the start, or very close to the end, I should say, very close to the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if that were to happen. But here's the thing. It doesn't end there with Victoria Alonso. All this crap going on with her getting fired has just built up even more. All right. And I have to say, it's kind of ridiculous. It really is. So, former Marvel executive, this is coming from Geek Vibes Nation on Twitter. Former Marvel executive Victoria Alonso reportedly told a Marvel director that a former Marvel director. So she told one director that another director, a former director, who directed one of the biggest movies the studio has ever put out, she said that director did not direct the movie. But we, as in Marvel, direct the movies. I think we found the real problem with Marvel. And it's in this belief right here. Look, we know. Let's take Kevin Smith, for instance, who did a bunch of episodes for The Flash and Supergirl over the years on CW. And the crazy thing about it is he would go and he would say, look, they've got this down pat. Like, I go there, I basically just cheer on the actors, say cut, say action, and that's about it. I'm not doing much directing there because they got it down to a science. And I'm sure they have the same thing over at Marvel. They have their teams. They have X amount of teams, so they can have X amount of productions going on at one time, and most of these people have been working on these productions for a number of years, so they have it down to a science. Absolutely. You then have the producers who have the idea, who work with the story team and the writers and making sure things are going where it needs to go. They have it down to a science, for sure. But that's where the problem lies, because you need to allow directors to put their little spin, their little flair into what's being created. Otherwise, why do you hire directors? You can hire one director, let's call him Kevin Feige, and he's the director of every single Marvel movie. He doesn't need to be there because everything is just running, and obviously directors don't direct, according to Victoria Alonso. So why does Kevin Feige have to be at every single production? He can go to shoot the bigger scenes and that's it. And that's a problem, because now you're going to have directors, potential directors, who want to do a Marvel movie or thought they want to do a Marvel movie. Now they're going to look at this and say, well, that doesn't sound like any fun, because it's not going to be me. It's not going to be my thing. And that right there is uncalled for. That's unacceptable. Now, here's the thing. I don't think it's completely true, because you take a look at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you could absolutely feel Sam Raimi's fingers. You can feel his influence on that movie. You got Ryan Coogler, who you can, in the first Black Panther, and even the second one, you can tell it's a Ryan Coogler film. So I think there are times where the directors actually get a chance and are able to express themselves and actually put forth their flair into Marvel Studio films. But she isn't completely wrong, because these films all feel alike in some form or fashion. Again, that's not a bad thing, because of look what it's done for them over the last, 15 years. It's done really well for them. But here we sit right now, and things need to change, and perhaps that is the big change that they need. Maybe that's what they need to do. They need to change the way they handle things a little bit. Maybe go out on a limb and get somebody like a Zack Snyder, not necessarily Zack Snyder, but somebody like him who has a very different type of style. Perhaps that's what they need to do to really not brighten up, but change it up when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let me know your thoughts on all this with Victoria Alonso. A lot of crap is going on with her. I'm over it. I am. I think it's enough is enough. It's time for a change. I don't understand why people are so shocked at what is happening with her. The fact that she's claiming Marvel and Disney fired her to silence her as a gay woman is absolutely asinine and ridiculous. She broke her contract, according to reports. She's the reason that she got fired. It's not anybody else's fault but her own. She did it. She went against what her contract said. But, what do you expect in today's age, especially somebody who is obviously more liberal than anything else and has these views that poor me, because that's what they just, everything is on them. Everything is out to get them. And that's not the case. That's not true. Stop acting like a stupid idiot and nobody's going to come after you, and don't break your contract and nobody's going to fire you. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple. So, moving on, James Gunn. We all like James Gunn, right? James Gunn's the man, right? I mean, I like James Gunn. I don't know why other people don't like James Gunn. I like James Gunn. But James Gunn, actually, we're going to go like this. James Gunn calls out Grace Randolph again. So Grace Randolph, in her Grace Randolphy ways, basically said that Logan Lerman, whatever his name is, I think he was in like the Percy Jackson films or something like that, is the front runner to be Superman. And James Gunn came out and he goes, I haven't had a single talk with an actor about the role, just making private lists, prepping material for auditions. He goes, for the record, I don't know who that is, talking about Logan Lerman. And he goes, look, guys, this isn't a dig at the actor. I don't know lots of actors' names. Now that you tell me who he is, I recognize him from stuff and think he's talented, but I've never met him, and he's never been part of the conversation about playing Superman. So once again, James Gunn is debunking scoopers, grifters, and I'm all for it. I love that he does it. I absolutely love the way, since he's become the head of DC Studios, I love how he just goes after scoopers because they just need to shut up. They need to go away. In my opinion, scoopers are the bane of pulp culture fun. And I will admit there was a time when I applauded them and was even considering trying to join their ranks. But after seeing how much damage that they have actually done over the past few years, and it's not just about spoiling things. It's also about creating a false narrative and false hope and essentially facilitating hate and anger. And I began my war on scoopers because of that and trying to put an end to their madness. And that's, to me, a big issue that's been going on. And I think they're a big proponent and a big reason why there's so much hate for James Gunn, because he's yucking on people's yum. He's out there. People get excited. There's a handful of people that probably wanted to see Logan Lerman as Superman or think that he has a possibility. And he comes out, nope, Logan Lerman's not. And then they get pissed off at James Gunn like it's his fault, when it's not his fault. It's not his fault. But the most unnecessary thing is the hate that James Gunn gets from all of this, because they always turn it into a negative against him. Dude, this guy, this man, this James Gunn, all he is trying to do is temper expectations and proving that these claims by scoopers are complete bullpucky. And yet somehow James is the bad guy for this. Like, somebody explain that to me. Somebody explain to me how somebody who is telling the truth, who is informing you of what is going on, is the bad guy. There's people over on Twitter right now, and even on this here. Let me move my screen a bit. What am I doing? There we go. It says here, by Superman on Film. Now that it's debunked, I'll share that it was Logan Lerman's name I heard last week. For some reason, serious reporters from very credible publications heard Gunn had met with Lerman. That kills that. I'm super relieved I never ran it and that he's not the candidate. And you have this here, Richie C. You just believe Gunn? LOL. Yeah. Like, why not? Why not? Where's the issue there? Like, he's the head of the studio. I think if anybody should be trusted and who's being considered and talked to be Superman, I think it would be the head of the studio. But it doesn't fit your narrative. It doesn't fit what you want to see. You're mad because he ended, or he's not even the one that ended it. He officially gave it closure, the Snyderverse closure. So you're mad at him for no reason. And it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But let me know your comments and thoughts below in the comments. Let me know what you think about this whole thing, because I think it's ridiculous. I love James Gunn for calling out these scoopers, for basically showcasing and showing everybody how much bullshit they spew. It's that simple. Lots and lots of bullshit. And incredible amounts of bullshit. And he's calling them out. And I give him credit for that. If I could shake his hand, if I give him a high five, I give him a high five. I tell you what, guys. I am sick and tired of the bullshit from this fandom. I really am. Before we get into the final topic, just a reminder, go check out our merch store. Link is in the description. Buy a shirt, buy stickers, buy bottles, buy whatever you want. Help support our show. You can also go to our Anchor feed on Anchor's website, which I think is now Spotify podcast or something like that. And you can go and support us there. There's a link in the description for that. And you can also go to our Stream Elements link and support us there also. So please support us. Help keep the lights on. We got some cool things coming up. We will be at Three Rivers Comic Convention, June. I believe it's 4th and 5th. So that'll be fun. It's going to be a blast. Both Colton and I will be there. I don't have anything else planned right now until then. Steel City Con is going on this coming weekend. I don't have a chance to get there this weekend. But yeah, that's this weekend. So go enjoy. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, please go out and enjoy and have some fun. The conventions are great. I tell everybody, I recommend to everybody to go to conventions or go to a convention at least once in your life because they're fun and you get to see some cool things, and you can even help support some independent creators, which is very important in this day and age. Go support the people that are putting in hard work, because that's the way to do it. That's really the way to do it. All right, let's go to our main topic now. And this one is a bit interesting because, DC Films for a number of years it's not been great. It hasn't been great. There's questions on, what happened. There's a huge debate going on right now in the social world on who is to blame for the underperformance of DC. Because they have failed. They failed horribly. Zachary Levi called out The Rock recently. Said it's his fault. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, it's all your fault, man. The DC failed because of you. Or you got the fans calling out the old regime, Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, and Sarnoff. It's all their fault. They destroyed the DCEU and DC Films. You can call out the Scoopers. I wouldn't say you're wrong about that if you called out the Scoopers, but you got Scoopers that are being called out. Is it their fault? You got the fans calling out James Gunn. James Gunn is the one who ruined DC Films, despite the fact that he's only been head of DC Films for 3 months. He's the reason, though. He broke it. He flubbed it up. Come on, people. DC Films broke a long time ago. So what is the main reason for their reception, or poor reception, or lack of grabbing attention? I think to fully understand, we kind of got to go back to 2013. And yes, I know 2013 is when Man of Steel came out. Man of Steel, which in my opinion is the best superhero movie to ever be made. It is a masterpiece. It is the greatest origin film for a superhero, and it is a phenomenal movie. I love it. I know a lot of people that love it. However, that movie was divisive, as was 2016's Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. When you take a look at the first two films of the DCEU, they were divisive. I don't even want to sit there and compare it to, say, Marvel, because Marvel's first two movies, they were fine. They were good. Iron Man's a really fun, great movie. Incredible Hulk wasn't great, but it was decent. It was good enough. And I'm not sitting here talking about financials. Everybody always wants to, especially the Snyder boys and the Snyder fans, they always want to jump in and say, well, Man of Steel made 600 some odd million, and Batman vs. Superman made almost 900 million. I get it. They made money. But that doesn't mean they weren't divisive, which they were. Take a look at Star Wars The Last Jedi, probably the most divisive film in the last 20 or 30 years, and it made over $1 billion. Divisive films can still make money. Divisive films can still be good. Divisive films could still be bad. And that's kind of where everything started with the DCU failing. You have two movies back to back, which divided the fandom. You had a fandom that was divided from Man of Steel because they felt it was too dark and too gloomy and there was no hope. And then you go to Batman vs. Superman and it expands on that gloominess and lack of hope. So you just further divide the fandom. I understand the story Zack Snyder was doing, and I'm sure a good portion of you who are listening or watching this realize and understand what Zack Snyder was doing. But that doesn't mean it was the right move to do. Now, we get into the behind-the-scenes stuff, because after two divisive films come out, you then have the studio freaking out. They want that Marvel money. They want that money that Marvel was making. All the things. Avengers just came out 4 years ago and made $1 billion. Captain America Civil War is about to come out and make $1 billion. DC, Warner Brothers, they want that money as well. But after two movies that divided the fandom, they were freaking out. And rightfully so. People want to sit there and constantly say, shame on the studio for not sticking with Zack at this point. You can't blame them. These films divided the fandom. Marvel films didn't divide the fandom. It brought them together. Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, it brought people together. People were excited for comic book movies. They were interested to see where this Marvel stuff was going. Iron Man, a B-level character in the comics, became an ultra superstar within 3-4 years. Superman, who is the most recognizable superhero ever, divided the fandom. Batman and Superman, and the first big screen appearance of Wonder Woman, divided the fandom even further. So the studio looking at that, they obviously say, well, shit, we got to do something. But here's the thing. I'm not saying the way they handled it was the right thing to do. The way they handled it was wrong. But to be worried, to want that money, to want to find a way to bring the fandom together, that's not wrong. That makes sense. That is what a studio should do. But how they handled it, the backstabbing, the underhandedness, the way that they treated the cast, the way they treated Zack Snyder, all of that was wrong. All of it was wrong. So what happens? Well, we get a plethora of other films. You get 2017's Justice League. You get the Suicide Squad from David Ayer. Aquaman, Shazam, Wonder Woman 84, 2017's Wonder Woman. Yeah, I mean, you get a bunch of things coming out that not a single one, with the exception of Aquaman, was really fully embraced and applauded. I love the first Wonder Woman movie. I do. I absolutely love it. But it very much felt like a Zack Snyder movie, which turned some people off of it. Which, as you see in Wonder Woman 84, they went the complete opposite ass direction, and it pissed more people off. Aquaman made a lot of money, and to this day, I still don't understand why. The movie's great. I really enjoy the movie. I think it's one of the most beautiful comic book movies visually in many ways. but the story is not anything great. It kind of gets bogged down in the middle of the film, and there's nothing like Jason Momoa is a good actor. He could be a leading man, but there's nothing about him that shouts big ass movie star. Like I'm still baffled by how it made $1 billion. Again, it's a good movie. I'm not saying it's not a good movie. I highly enjoy the film, but it just I don't see it as $1 billion movie. But then everything, Birds of Prey, Shazam made just under $400 million when it came out on a $100 million budget. It made money. It did well. I like the movie. It's a fun film. But again, it's not. That is not a movie that Warner Brothers wants to see being made over and over again. They want a slice of that $1 billion pie. Justice League was a massive failure, but that is because of how the studio handled everything after BVS and Man of Steel were so divided. And again, they were right to worry. They were right to be concerned about where the universe was headed, but the way they handled it was wrong. So, what caused this failure? What is the reasoning? The overall reason why DC failed. I talked about the studio. I talked about the fans being divisive. And then we get into the pandemic, because the pandemic didn't help at all. Pandemic really didn't help because everything got shut down. Birds of Prey came out right at the beginning, which isn't a terrible film. It's not a great movie. A little too much woman power crap in it that is just dumb. But it's got its moments for sure. But here's the thing. The fandom was so divided by that point in time that the scoopers and grifters, during the pandemic, all these people trying to find something to do while they were off work, sitting at home behind their computers, turned on a camera, started talking at a computer screen and hoping that people would listen to them spout out bullshit. And it happened. And people started listening to them. And when they started listening to them, they weren't just listening to them. They were getting angry. Not at the grifters, but at the studio. At what was happening. Instead of sitting back and saying, okay, yes, I see these movies were divisive. I see these movies weren't very good. I understand why the studio was afraid to move forward in this direction, but I don't agree with how they did it. That's not how anybody looks at it. All they look at is Kevin Tushihara and Jeff Johns and Walter Hamada, Toby Emmerich and Sarnoff and Josh Whedon and all of them. It's all their fault. They're the main reasons. And that's not the full story on why DC films failed. Zack Snyder can't be thrown in there as well. I love him as a director. I love what he was doing with DC. But there was a refusal by him to understand and see that the audience wasn't grasping his story that he was telling. And in a way, he was kind of reluctant to adjust himself. The studio was forcing changes on him. The studio was forcing him to do different things. But he himself, who should have went back to the drawing board after the failures of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel and said, we need to make a more hopeful movie and write a movie that quickly establishes the hope and American way that Superman is while bringing the Justice League together. He continued on course with his long drawn out story where we get 10 minutes of Superman, if even that, in the movie with very, very little bits of hope. And don't get me wrong, I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love Batman vs. Superman. I love Man of Steel. But his refusal, his reluctancy to adjust and make changes to appease the larger audience, which in turn would have appeased the studio. And that's the crazy thing to think. Like, if you really, really think about it, again, I'm not saying what the studio did is right, but it's quite possible that none of that would have happened had Zack Snyder been more willing to adjust his plans. So what caused it to fail? Lack of direction, fan reception, studio mistreatment of fans, the controversy with the cast, controversy with director, controversy with executives, Marvel, the fan toxicity, scoopers and grifters. But you know, the one thing, the one area that was not the cause of this failure? James Gunn. But he made the Suicide Squad and he made Peacemaker. Yeah, he did. Both of them which were critically and audience approved. Suicide Squad didn't make a lot of money. You take a look at everything around it. Peacemaker was like the biggest TV show at the beginning of last year. Fans loved it. Critics loved it. James Gunn didn't kill the DCEU. James Gunn didn't kill DC Films. Scoopers did. Grifters did. The toxicity within the fandom did. Marvel just going above and beyond in so many ways within the genre did. All the controversy that took place behind the scenes with the cast, directors, and executives. How the studio mistreated the fans. How the fans just didn't care for what was coming out. And for the lack of direction on where the hell they were taking this universe. Like, you can't tell me that it's anything else. It's not one thing. It's all of that combined. It's us, the fans. It's the studio. It's the directors. It's the way that they mistreated people. Everything just happened to fall one certain way, which caused it to fail. But here we are. Here we sit today. The new DC universe, DC Studios, led by James Gunn. And I have to say, things have never been brighter when it comes to DC film. Never been brighter. We have an opportunity and get excited for these characters coming to life on screen and having a direction and a story that is worth telling. That's not to say what we got with Zack Snyder and other directors wasn't worth watching or listening to or following through with. Unfortunately, that was ended. It got removed. It was killed off. It's not happening. We would love for it to. We have 3 amazing Zack Snyder DC films that we can always go back to and watch. But we need to get excited. We need to come together. This whole, I was looking back in my memories on Facebook today, and last year, 2 years ago, March 25th, there was an event, Us United, more than a hashtag. I was a big proponent. I was a big reason that event happened. We raised more than $2,000 for AFSP. Very proud of what we did. And it was a lot of fun. Because I truly believe that everybody staying united in a positive manner was more important than anything else. Absolutely, we wanted to see the continuation and the completion of Zack Snyder's Justice League, Snyderverse, I should say. But I still believe, even though it's not going to be completed, that we should still stand united in a respectful way. If what they do over at DC Studios is not for you, then walk away. It's no different than how it was 10 years ago. You got the Batman to watch. You got Joker Dave Coulier to watch. Go watch those when they come out. You don't need to watch the DCU. Or give it a shot. Maybe it is for you. Maybe you'll enjoy it. Will you enjoy it as much as you did Zack Snyder stuff? Maybe, maybe not. But you're not going to know unless you try. And there's no reason to be so spiteful, so hateful, so filled with rage towards a studio head who's done nothing to make your life miserable. He's never hurt you. He's never done anything to you, to us fans, besides be open and honest with what he's trying to do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think about everything going on. I know, it's crazy. There's a lot with DC films. And some people may hear this, some people may push back and say, no, you're wrong, it wasn't Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is a living legend, he's a god. Yeah, well, maybe if he would have just been like, you know what, guys, you're right, it didn't work. What do you think we should do? Let's work together and let's fix this. Maybe things would be totally different today. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. Share this with all your friends. Follow us on all the shows, social medias. I can't talk. Scan that QR code to find all our links to everything. Thank you so much for watching. With all that said, talk to all of you later.